Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty, and today I will be joined by, it seems like our favorite guest host, Mark from the False Nine podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on again. I love joining you.
Yes, I really appreciate it, and you've done a phenomenal job of filling in. And by the way, I was just talking to some people, and maybe I should tell you this off camera, but that have been listening to the podcast, and they have said you've been wonderful. So that's not just me; that comes from some people that are audience members. Okay, in today's episode, we're going to break down last night's 4-1 victory. Inter Miami defeats the New England Revolution, probably secures their final place in the table. I think it's reasonable to assume Inter Miami is going to finish third now. A couple of things could change that, but for the most part, that's what's most likely. And so now we hit the point in the season where it's all about, can you get healthy? Can you get in form? Are you ready to go come playoff season? And last night was, I think, the first game in that order. We're going to talk all about that, what happened, how this team is going to be set up for the playoffs. And as always, we're going to give out some awards. But before all of that, I want to start out with the breaking news from Friday night. Fabrizio Romano, and I'm sure you've seen this by now, tweets out kind of randomly that Sergio Reguilon, who has been with Tottenham and been on loan a couple places over the last couple years, free agent, seems like he's going to sign with Inter Miami come January. What was your reaction to that on Friday night? How are you feeling about it now that you've had a little bit of an opportunity to digest it?
I was completely shocked, surprised by that announcement. Really had no idea that Inter Miami were even looking at him, looking at this player, talking to this player, anything like that. And then I started thinking, he's a left back. Jordi Alba's a left back. What's Jordi Alba's plan? Are the rumors true that he may be, looking to leave or not looking to renew or not renewing, or is he going to play left wing? I was just as surprised as as you were, probably, as other people in the Inter Miami community were surprised as this player was named as in advanced talks to sign so soon in the January transfer window. So not a position of need, but it gives you a serviceable left back if you want to play Jordi Alba up the pitch. So time will tell. Well, if this is going to be a good signing.
Well, the thing is, and let's be clear, he did not say or report that it was a done deal, but that Inter Miami's project looks the most appealing. And you would have to imagine for a player in Europe who's grew up in Spain and in the Real Madrid academy and has played in the Premier League, if he hasn't hooked up with a European club by now, maybe he is really exploring the opportunity to sign on with a team that plays in a January to December calendar year schedule, which means like Inter Miami could be like almost the reasonable decision here from his perspective. That said, they are going to have to pay him an amount of money that would force them to play him. And while I think he can play as a left wing back or as a left back, I don't know if there's a ton of positional versatility with him as far as I can tell. I also don't think he's so talented that he has to be a star. Like, he's not coming in to replace Jordi Alba. He's not even of the caliber of signing of a Rodrigo de Paul or anyone like that. He's probably a good player for this league that is not going to be a superstar. So what does that mean for our left back situation? Because, as you said, Jordi Alba under contract. You also have a backup option in Noah Allen that can fill in there and is going to be happy with his role, I imagine, next year when he's starting at center back. So at least the majority of the time. It felt like they were covered at left back, and now it feels like I don't know what's going on. Maybe they just thought this is like a good player. We can add him to the roster. And if that's what they're doing, I'm not sure I love that strategy. If it is something to the idea and the rumors that we've heard about Jordi Alba potentially leaving, that makes me nervous because that would mean Inter Miami's already had this communicated to them that he wants to leave, which would also be interesting. And that this is sort of the plan they came up with after. But that would mean they've known for weeks and maybe like a whole month that Jordi Alba didn't want to come back. I don't know what to think about this. I really don't.
There seems to be a lot of moving factors and moving pieces to this rumor, or to this, ongoing situation with the left back room or position. And your guess is as good as mine. He's a serviceable left back. He's not anything out of this world. He can. There's not a lot of position versatility. He can't play on the right as a right. He can't play right back. He can't play right center back. I don't think he even plays center back. Period. Or to the extent that Noah Allen can, or if you put Jordi Alba in a three back. So he's strictly limited to left wing back, left back. So it's very interesting and you know head scratching to see what was communicated, what isn't communicated, what is goes.
It also makes me a little nervous that they're planning for next year. Because I don't know about you, but this feels like this project is sort of on like a knife's edge, where it may have to be broken apart in order to salvage. And if that's the case, like they're already making moves without having made some of the more fundamental decisions, especially when it comes to a guy like Reguilon, who's not he's not a period, he's not like a player of need. It's not a position of need. It's not such a good player that you go lock him down as soon as you can. It makes me uncomfortable with this move, honestly. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I don't understand it on the surface, and so it makes me nervous that they're moving ahead with this so quickly. And the offseason hasn't even started yet.
I agree. I mean, with eyes, that should be focused on the playoffs and playoff run if this team's going to make one. I think it's too premature to focus on next season and anything past that.
Now, right now, Inter Miami is scheduled to play the number 6 team in the Eastern Conference, which at the moment is Nashville. It could end up being Orlando City. Like, there's a world where Inter Miami gets bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and we are having a conversation about this being a disaster of a season. And they have to move on from the front staff, the coaching staff, move on a ton of the veteran players, not the superstar players, but that middle part of the roster, and also guys like Ustadi and guys like that. That to start with a left back, and I don't want to say he's a superstar, but he is a big name by MLS standards. Left back, this is a really surprising move, and I'm not entirely comfortable with it.
I'm on the same boat as you are.
Maybe this is a conversation for another day, because we do have to get into this game, and we should. But before we do, last talking point I wanted to have, international break starts tomorrow, which means a couple players are leaving the team, and they will not be with the Inter Miami this weekend. Namely, seems like Lionel Messi is going to join the Argentina squad. He probably won't leave South Florida because they do play in Miami, but won't be with the Herons on Saturday. Rodrigo de Paul, obviously a full part of the Argentina squad. Talasco Segovia with Venezuela. Noah Allen going to the Greek youth national team. And then Ian Frey, sounds like he's getting his first call-up. That's the one I want to stick on because he's never had an international call-up before. I don't even think at youth level with the U.S. national team, U.S. youth national teams, has accepted the Jamaica call-up, doesn't have to make a switch because he never got called up by the U.S. So this is his first time getting an international call-up, and I think that's really cool and well-deserved from Ian Frey.
I agree. He's played fantastic this season. He's shown flourishes of what he can provide when he's on his A game, and I think it's a good call-up for Jamaica.
I'm really excited for him. I really am. This is a guy that I think if things had gone differently with his knees, he may be on the U.S. men's national team right now. And not a disrespect or a shot at Jamaica, but that I think would have been really, really special for Inter Miami. And me as a USMNT fan, I would have loved to see that. Okay, getting to this Inter Miami game. They go on and beat the New England Revolution, spoiler alert, 4-1. But I want us to talk about the stakes of this game and where you're thinking, not just maybe last night, but the last few games of the season. They have very little wiggle room with where they're going to end up in the Eastern Conference. As we know, first place out of the conversation. The Philadelphia Union won the Supporters' Shield last night officially. Second place would require Inter Miami to they'd basically have to win their next 2 games and hope Cincinnati drops points in their final game, because Cincinnati will hold the tiebreaker, which means they're probably not going to finish second either. Fourth, fifth, probably not going to be a huge challenge for Inter Miami if they can get one win out of these next two, which means that Inter Miami is probably destined for third place in the Eastern Conference. With that in mind, how are you feeling about these last three games? What do you want to see from the team? Are you really focused on any individual aspect, or is it just like these are the games that happen before we go to the playoffs? Like, what's your mindset?
Given the fact that you said that we're going to be missing a couple players for that Atlanta game, I believe, is the next game we have on the schedule. Uh, After that, I think these games are just about consistency and finding the form going into the playoffs. I need to see the consistent 11, and I need us to play, top football and clicking on all cylinders to have a real sense of confidence heading in to the MLS Cup playoff. And if we're going to make a deep run, it starts with these two games. And this game against New England was a get back game, a get right game to start the final three, and hopefully they can carry some momentum into Atlanta and into the Nashville game.
Do you think that okay, but going into the playoffs, do you think momentum matters for this team? Because we haven't seen this team be consistent all season. And like, if you want to go by their track record, maybe the best thing is for them to lose the next two games and have everyone down on them, and then they come out and sort of have this 3 or 4 game stretch that everyone feels really good about. That almost feels like what it will take for this team to do well. But obviously, historically, you'd want to be going in good form. You want to have a couple wins under your belt, especially against a New England team that's not particularly good, especially against an Atlanta United team that's not particularly good at home, those games at home. And maybe we can have a conversation about Nashville on the road in that final game. But like, specifically for this team, all of the cliches we just talked about, do they apply in your opinion, or is it kind of just it almost doesn't matter? I don't know. What do you think?
It's just so hard to get a grip on this team this whole season that, like you just said, it'd be best for us to lose 2 and then win 1 heading into the playoffs. But I think that momentum is such a big factor. I know we haven't had that at all. If somehow we're able to find that and it's able to stick through that first game of the playoffs and carry that into the second game, it can be a game changer heading in, with anything further this team's trying to accomplish. So I do believe that, winning these last two or getting a win from the last two is indicative of how we're going to perform in the playoffs. I'm a firm believer in any sport. A team is hot heading into playoff time, they're going to be hard to beat. And this team hasn't been hot at all this season, typically lukewarm. But if there is any sense of hope and any sense of leadership, any sense of pride to right the wrongs of last year, they have a chance to do it.
You would think it would be important, but again, this team is just so everywhere from a mental perspective that it's almost hard to judge. Okay, let's get into the game because they did play really well, I thought. Like almost 70 minutes, maybe 65 minutes. I thought they were clearly the better team, created tons of opportunities, a couple that were called off for offsides, a couple that hit forced a nice save out of Matt Turner. It was an opportunity fest for Inter Miami, and they finally do break through in the 32nd minute. It's a moment where Messi collects the ball, and all 3 center backs kind of crash in on him, and one of them leaves, Tanner Beeson leaves Tadeo Allende completely wide open down that right side of the field. Messi obviously is going to find him every time, puts the pass in, and then Allende does the rest by putting a nice hard low shot into the back post or the far post, and Inter Miami's up 1-0 and deserved it.
Yeah, agreed. They deserved it. I think that play started with Jordi Alba making interception in the midfield, controlling the ball, playing it to Messi, and then, as you said, Messi finds Allende wide open. And Allende puts a great low-driven shot to the back post. He had a shot like that Turner had to make a save on maybe a couple moments before that. And that's good by Allende.
In the 15th minute, he had an opportunity that Turner had to save. Yeah.
So with Allende in that situation when he scored, I thought it was very good of him to go back to that shot, go across the frame of goal, and keep it low away from the keeper, and he was able to get it on target and past Matt Turner. So those are the things you like to see from a player: consistency and just going back to what worked and what caused a save. And now you have a chance to score, and he put it away.
Another couple opportunities. Even after that, Inter Miami continued to pour it on. There was a moment right, I think the 44th minute, where Inter Miami puts in the back of the net, but it's called offsides because it taps the shoulder of Luis Suarez, and he's half a step offsides, takes away a Messi goal. But ultimately, Inter Miami gets that second goal right before half. Third minute of stoppage time. Jordi Alba pressing the keeper really high, just sort of makes that desperate run. And Matt Turner, who the announcers had praised for his footwork and his ability to control the ball with his feet earlier in the game, has a terrible moment where he tries to spray it out, and it goes straight to the feet of Lionel Messi. He just kind of juke moves Tanner Beeson. As the central center back tries to recover, he kind of just taps it past him, Jordi Alba, who's just sitting there in the 6-yard box. A little fancy footwork from Jordi Alba. He puts it in the back of the net, and Inter Miami gets the killer right before halftime. It's 2-0 Herons, and it was almost not even a competition at that point. Inter Miami was so much better in the first half, in my opinion, and they absolutely deserved a 2-0 lead going into the break.
Yeah, agreed. 2-0. I think it could have been up 4-0 going into half, but 2-0 is a very respectable for what the performance they put on that first half. As you said, Turner was praised by the commentators. Commentators curse. Failed to clear it, fails to get it out anywhere near his team. Messi's able to pick it up, body feints, drops the shoulder. Beeson goes one way. Messi is able to put the ball across the frame of goal. Jordi Alba, as he's falling, is able to collect himself, delay a step, and then he's able to slot it home, and it's 2-0 for the Herons. But a credit to Jordi Alba for putting on a press and really engaging and trying to get us, that second goal right before the stroke of halftime.
Yeah, I watching that play, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is Jordi Alba doing there? And you see the highlight, and it's because he's putting in a little bit of defensive work to make that difficult for the goalkeeper. And especially right as you get to the end of half, people think, okay, we're checked out for the last 20 seconds of the break. Nope, we're going to get you when you turn off for just half a second. So excellent play by Jordi Alba. Into the second half, 59th minute. This is when New England has their opportunity to get back into the game. Dortmund receives a pass, kind of takes one step. Then Maxi Falcone comes to close in. Turgeman just taps it in between the legs of Maxi Falcone, creates some space before anyone has a chance to recover, fires a shot from outside the box, puts it in the far netting. It was a really nice shot. And all of a sudden it's 2-1 New England. Before we get to the next moment, were you even half a second of nervous at that point?
Slightly, just because I always say to myself, 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football, and anything can happen with one goal. There was so much time left, and anything can happen with the team with the way they've played at times. So I was hoping that they didn't revert back to old times and just sit back and let this team have possession and control the pace of the game. But before we got to the next moment, there was a sense of calmness with the team that I saw, that they didn't have any time to panic or anything. Just collected the ball and just restarted the play.
Yeah, I was having a lot of the same thoughts. And then the next thing I did was look up, and Allende was celebrating a goal, which even the cameras didn't really see what happened. But immediately on the reset, Busquets pushes it to Lionel Messi at the halfway mark, and he kind of just spots Tadeo Allende making a run. He puts it over the top. Allende bodies off Tanner Beeson again, beats him for pace, and then finishes it again past Matt Turner. And so Inter Miami didn't even have a chance to get nervous. Inter Miami fans didn't even have a chance to contemplate what this game might become, because as soon as they give up their 2-goal lead, they get it right back. Literally 60 seconds later, it's back to being 3-1. And then just 3 minutes later, Inter Miami puts the game away with their fourth goal.
What a bad night to beat Tanner Beeson. But Allende on that second goal he scored. Great run to get on the right side of to put the defender on his back and muscle him off and control the ball, bring it down and take a touch into space, into the path of play where he's going. And he's able to beat Turner, and Messi put a great ball from the halfway line. And that fourth goal was Jordi Alba, doing Jordi Alba things, finds himself in the box, touches the ball, just kind of waits for the defender to mess up. Defender slides right by him, and he's putting it far post, and it's 4-0 and at 4-1, and you're pretty comfortable at that time. I was fairly confident, nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, Inter Miami finishes celebrating their third goal, and about 2 minutes later, they get their fourth. Talasco Segovia comes into the game after that third goal, and I think his first time on the ball, dribbles centrally, is wide open, has a ton of space because the defenders were sort of ultra focused on Messi. Dribbles near to the box, finds Jordi Alba out to the left, passes it to him. Jordi Alba does, again, fancy footwork. He kind of lets the ball roll instead of trying to make a juke move, and Brandon By, the left wing or the right wing back for New England, kind of just blows past it, and then Alba has an easy shot on goal. At that point, it's the 63rd minute. Inter Miami's up 4-1. This game is over, and the Herons, I would say they let off the pressure a little bit in those final 25 minutes. New England did create some opportunities, but for the most part, it was a 3-goal game. I think Inter Miami earned the right to take their foot off the gas just a little bit.
Yeah, the last 25 minutes were like a slugfest. Seemed like to take forever. We couldn't really possess the ball, clear the ball, but we didn't make any defensive mistakes. We didn't give up any penalties, any set pieces that were anything of that nature. It was good. It was good to see a 4-1 deserved win for this team.
Yeah, and I think they earned a 4-1 win. Everyone feels good about it. I don't think anyone had a bad performance, really. We do have to give up the Heron that flew north, but you'll see it wasn't – no one's going to walk away from yesterday's game feeling bad about their performance. And so the title of this episode is Get Right, because I think that's what they did. They had a really poor performance on Tuesday night, or a really frustrating performance on Tuesday night. They come back the next time they're on the field, and they just handle business in a way where everyone feels good about it.
I agree. It's a great title for the episode, the Get Right game. It happens a lot in other areas of sport. You lose one, next game, it's called the Get Right game. Everyone's clicking on all cylinders. You have a good performance, and everyone's happy after.
Let's talk about New England for a few minutes, because part of this game to me was that New England was really bad, especially through the midfield and especially defensively, and especially, as you mentioned, Tanner Beeson. I thought he had like a nightmarish game. 3 out of the 4 goals I think he's partially responsible for. Probably had a moment on one of the goals that got called offsides where he probably didn't feel great about it. So tough game from Tanner Beeson, but I thought generally that defense was not in a position to handle this Inter Miami attack, especially when they were in form and firing. And if Tadeo Allende is going to be on target, Matt Turner's only going to do so much. And that's, I think, why we're at the end of the season and they're not a playoff team.
Yeah, their defense, as you said, wasn't prepared to handle Miami if we were clicking in the attack, and it showed. Multiple attempts. Matt Turner made some saves, but the defense asked a lot of questions. Inter Miami were able to capitalize, and it seemed like we were in control the entire time.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's much more to say. That's a team that I think that Dor Turgeman guy. Player that just signed. He made his debut last week for them. Seems like a really good piece, U22 signing. Is he going to be a star for them next year? Maybe, but they fired their coach, Caleb Porter. They're sort of slugging through the end of this season, and that's sort of the type of performance you get. I think they have 1 game left, and that's what happens when you're not going to make the playoffs and you're in your final games of the season. Okay, let's talk about Inter Miami, because that's what we're really here to do. What'd you think? What did you notice? What was shouting at you while you watched this game?
One thing I noticed, or one thing I wanted to focus on, I'll compare it to the Chicago game that I was at. We were really open in that midfield, and this time we were a lot more compact. We had numbers in the midfield to override any press that New England were to throw at us. Baltasar was checking in. We played a clean game in that midfield, and that's where I like to focus on the most, because I think that's where a game is won and lost, through the midfield. If you don't have a midfield that's properly set up, you're going to get beat more often than not. A lot of the passage of play for teams for Inter Miami that we go up against will try to overload numbers in the midfield and try to progress the ball through there, and then from there spread out wide. I thought we did a good job containing that and containing Carlos Hill and Polster, and keeping them just in front of us and not letting them get the ball and finding runners like Campana or or by down the byline, down the sideline, excuse me. And then I felt handling their pressure. Baltasar was good, checking in, taking touches, facing facing taking a touch, facing goal, and going and spraying balls out, and just really helping Busquets and De Paul get the offense started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. There was a couple moments. Listen, it's hard to say because going into that second half, if we were being ultra critical, there were some parts of a letdown. It's almost that I feel like they earned the right to have a little bit of a letdown because they're winning 4-1, but it almost does take away from how great they played in the early parts of the game because they did allow a couple chances and they did force Rocco to stand up and have an impact in this game in a way that maybe a more professional team wouldn't have. But that's nitpicking, truthfully. I thought they were much better in the midfield and defensively. I think they found their partnership. That duo is starting to get some chemistry, I think, and they are playing better because of it. So, yeah, it's an excellent point. But for me, the real conversation I want to have is last night's 11, and maybe I can bring it up here if you'll give me a second, and I apologize for those on audio that aren't going to have the opportunity to see this, but this is last night's 11. Aside from Rocco, I think this is the outfield 10 that Javier Mascherano is going to go with from here on out. I think this is what we're going to see in Game 1 of the playoffs. What do you think?
I think it's our best 11, honestly. And I want to focus on that Baltasar Jordi Alba side because that's where Segovia would normally start or had been starting throughout the season. I think Jordi Alba fully unlocks his potential and fully unlocks the games and is able to have a real impact on these games with Rodriguez there rather than Segovia. Rodriguez drags defenders out, drags defenders wide, and allows that space for Jordi Alba to operate in that, in that middle part of the, midfield, to say the least, or spread out wide and play triangulations with Suarez and Rodriguez and Alba. So I think that specifically plays into why Mascherano believes and why you believe and why I believe this will be the best 11 that we have in for the first playoff game.
Well, to be clear, I'm not sure I think this is the best 11, but
sorry.
I think this is what Javier Mascherano thinks. I think that's an interesting point. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, but fair. We can have disagreements. Yeah, that's fine. I really do believe Jordi Alba for the past 10 weeks or so has been given the license to get forward more, and he's built himself into really good form. And in the beginning of the season, he was in really poor form. I don't really think that has to do with Segovia. I think that's more of a coaching decision. Or Baltasar, for that matter. I think we've seen this for the past 2+ months, and Talasco Segovia was starting for a lot of that. But I guess just with that specific position change, Talasco Segovia versus Baltasar, even last night, Talasco Segovia gets an assist, comes on, and has an immediate impact. How are you feeling about, just for the record, you believe this is what Javier Mascherano is going to go with? You agree
yes,
with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. What do you think of the decision for Baltasar over Talasco?
I think he just favors the ability of Baltasar playing wide and playing better out there, closer to the touchline than Segovia, where Segovia is a naturally, more of a center mid central player. And it really, if Jordi Alba's caught too high, then Mascherano was thinking, Segovia really can't track back. But Baltasar's there, we give track back ability. We have the ability to play in the midfield. We also have the ability to play wide with those two. So I think that's where he's thinking of going with that.
That's so interesting because I have such a different read on Baltasar Rodriguez. I think he likes to cut in a lot. I think he likes to play in those sort of left center channels. Not really a wide player, but I don't necessarily think Talasco's different in that regard. I don't think they separate in how they like to play. Other than Baltasar likes to play a little bit higher, even though yesterday I do think he was a little bit deeper than we've seen him lately.
I think Mascherano wants to play a certain type of way and sees Baltasar fitting as that certain type of player now rather than Segovia. And that's why I think more Segovia will be on the bench to start the playoff.
Okay, let's talk about the other side, or sort of an ancillary conversation, because it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have to be either Telasco
No.
Segovia or Baltasar Rodriguez. There's a way where you could fit in both. There's a way where you could sort of manipulate this lineup to have both of those guys in the 11. In fact, I think a lot of us thought Tadeo Allende was going to see the bench 2 weeks ago when Baltasar finally was healthy and Silvetti arrived. And then it became clear that Silvetti was going, and it was going to be Baltasar and Allende, not Baltasar and Segovia on the right, or Segovia on the left, Baltasar on the right. So I guess maybe just sticking with Telasco, how do you feel about him not even being in the starting 11?
You obviously feel for him after being in the 11 for so long and
Well,
just,
okay, but do you think this is
okay.
the right decision?
In the end, it's just, I don't. I think he should start over Allende. I think Segovia overall is a better player, technically better player, helps out in the press. I know we lose the verticality of Allende, but we gain a player in the midfield and we gain someone who can help alleviate pressure and alleviate Messi from creating everything. So I do think Segovia and Baltasar should both start, as you said, in a world where they both do. We don't know, but I do think Segovia. I feel for him not getting the minutes that he used to.
And the other one I think is really interesting is Yannick Bright,
Hmm.
who, listen, if you asked, I think almost any Inter Miami fan 8 weeks ago, they would say the four best players in Inter Miami, and maybe they wouldn't even include Suarez, is the Barcelona guys, and then it's Segovia and Yannick Bright as the next two best players out of anyone else on this roster. That was 8 weeks ago. And here we are, where it looks like neither of them are going to start going into the playoffs. What do you think?
I'm reminiscing from last year and Tata Martino trying to get playing time for both Diego Gomez and Redondo at the same time and leaving Yannick Bright out at times and Robert Taylor out at times. And I think it's a conundrum that, this manager faces of wanting to get his players on, but also having two very, very talented players on the bench. And what do you do in that situation? Because I like right there with you and many Inter Miami fans. Yannick Bright, last 8 weeks, are top four players for Inter Miami, a top four, top five, six in the league. So it's a very difficult choice to make, but he's not benching Busquets or De Paul.
Okay, I understand that he's not going to bench DePaul or Busquets, but to be fair, he probably should be. Um, Conversation for another day,
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
or maybe for awards. Okay, I know. I think this is what we're going to see, with the exception of Oscar Stadi in goal, and this is absolutely Javier Mascherano's guys, with maybe the exception of Gonzalo Lujan. But for the most part, these are the guys he's wanted all year. Maxi Falcone is a him guy. Baltasar Rodriguez is a Javier Mascherano guy. Tadeo Allende is a guy that everyone in Inter Miami, including me, who I feel like I've been one of his strongest defenders this year, has said it's time to put him on the bench. Javier Mascherano stuck with him. And obviously the big names. And Oscar Stadi, also a guy that, he made really difficult decisions to make Oscar Stadi the number one goalkeeper. It's on him, I think, with what we've ended up with. I think the only guy that really broke in that wasn't in Javier Mascherano's plans is Noah Allen and maybe Ian Frey to a lesser extent. But aside from that, these are the guys that he wanted and drew on his plate come January, and then DePaul dropped into his lap and he went with him instead. But man, it's crazy that we've gotten to this point, I think.
I feel like I agree with you. These are his guys. These are his dudes he wants to ride with, and I don't think anything changes.
And so that does put now the pressure back on him to make sure it works. And by the way, I want to be clear. You guys know I'm a huge Yannick Bright fan. It's his decision, and if it's the best one for the team and it ends up helping them win, that's cool. Like, it doesn't, That's fine. I just want to be clear about that. The primary goal is to win. And if this is what is going to make that happen, then I'm on board with that. Okay. Anything else about this game you want to talk about? I know we're flying through, but it's hard for me to want to microanalyze these games because I know that this is what the team is at this point. The 11 is pretty much set. The tempo, the style, like this is what we're going to get. And these games aren't that important, in my opinion. So before we move on to awards, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to ask you, did you feel like we should have maybe brought on a couple subs other than the two center backs, maybe Pico and Santi Morales, just, to give fresh legs and rest to Messi or whoever, and Suarez and other players like that?
I think that was a great game to get Santi Morales minutes. I don't think Javier Mascherano has a particularly high opinion on Santi Morales, and I don't think he has a particularly high opinion on Fafa Pico. So, no, it doesn't really surprise me. I thought there was a moment where Chelo Weigand could have come in instead of. What ends up happening is Ian Frey comes out in the 90th minute for Toto Avilas, and so it becomes a Falcone, Toto Avilas, and Gonzalo Lujan in the back for the last 5 minutes of the game. There was a moment in like the 75th minute where Ian Frey, I think, he was like cramping. Maybe I would have taken him out there because you are up 4-1 and put on Cello, but I know what Javier Mascherano is thinking at this point. Sure, I would have loved to see them, but I just don't think that's even part of his thought process, honestly.
Crazy when you're up 4-1. I mean, and that's not going through your head, trying to get rest for these guys and bring on some fresh legs and guys who haven't really played a lot and just let them go at it. But
I'm with you. But
I don't know.
One of the conversations we're going to have, spoiler alert, on this podcast is what Inter Miami is doing with their young players and what this coaching staff has done with the young players this year. But that's, again, a conversation for maybe later this week. Okay, let's get to awards because that's what we do on this show. And sorry about that. For those that don't know, we give out 6 awards after every game: a Heron of the Match, a Heron that flew north, 2 individual awards each. And because I went first last time, I'm going to let you go first this time, Mark, which means you're going to get to go first in back-to-back appearances. So congratulations.
Thank you for the honor.
Yeah, who do you got for Heron of the Match?
I got Jordi Alba for the Heron of the Match for this match. I just feel he's been on a different level these last couple weeks, and it just continues to show every week with what he's able to do on the offensive side and, really push forward. And what struck out to me, as it struck out to you, was he pressed with about a minute, 2 minutes left before the stroke of halftime, and we found another goal because of him. He helped create that first goal, and he gets 2 goals himself. And, he had overall for me, had a great game. So I thought it was indicative of his performance of the past. He's carrying the momentum, and hopefully he can just carry it through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. He was fantastic. Obviously, the 2 goals, but he's playing in dangerous areas. This is what he's supposed to be. And this is what he was last year for Inter Miami. This is what he was in the first year with Inter Miami. This is what he was for Barcelona. Like, this is what he's supposed to be. And the fact that he wasn't this guy for the first 4 months of the season was the crime. I'm glad that we've gotten to this point where we can let Jordi be Jordi. But he was fantastic again. Not just the 2 goals, putting pressure on defensively, being a part of the buildup was really impactful in this game. So I don't have anything but good things to say about Jordi Alba from this game. I would have also given him the man of the match, the Heron of the Match, because he was outstanding. And for Tadeo Allende's credit, and I'm sure we'll talk about him coming up, but Jordi Alba was not just equal on the score sheet, but also more impactful in the game. Do you feel good about Jordi Alba coming into the playoffs?
I do. I feel that he is, right now, the player that's most, aside from Messi, including Messi actually, the most informed player for Inter Miami. He's got his head so focused on doing right for this team, even if being a vocal leader on the pitch and really trying to will this team to victory and will this team to a win wherever he can. I think he's mega focused on being ready for the playoffs.
is he the most important player for Inter Miami? Not aside from Messi, obviously. He's. It's weird because over the course of the last 2.5 years, which is crazy to say that it's been 2.5 years of this project, but there have been times where Suarez has clearly been the second most important player behind Messi. But also Jordi Alba, I think, has always been sort of in that conversation, and Busquets has had moments where he's been sort of equally as important. The four of them, and especially the three of Busquets, Messi, and Alba, have formed such a dynamic trio of ball control, ball possession, game control, and then just absolute clinical finishing and ability to create chances. That if you take out any of them, the team looks different and worse. And Jordi Alba is absolutely living up to that part of his responsibility right now in a way that I'm not sure he was at the beginning of the season, but he is now, and I think the team looks much better because of it.
Yeah.
Okay, our second award, the heron that flew north. For those that don't know, Florida herons don't fly anywhere for the winter, so if you catch one flying north, you catch one doing the wrong thing. And in that vein, I'm giving this award kind of regretfully, because now that I've really thought about it, I wish I had given it to someone else, but we'll talk about it. I'm giving it to Maxi Falcone because I submitted it to the graphics department already. Thought he was fine, but he gets dribbled through his legs and then gives up a goal to Turgeman. I thought everyone played pretty well in this game, so I'm nitpicking here. And that's why I'm giving him the heron that flew north. I actually thought he played pretty well this game.
Well, a really tough game to give the heron that flew north. To be honest, where everyone plays great, and you just find like for this, he got beat on the goal. Stepped up at the wrong time, got the ball between his legs, and they score a goal. So I thought he played fine. I just had very difficult to give out. I probably wouldn't have. I wouldn't be able to think of one right now off the top of my head if I had to give it to somebody. Maybe I can, but I have no problem with how he played. But
do you feel good about him and Noah right now? Because I think I think we're in maybe his most consistent portion of the season, where he hasn't had like fantastic games like maybe we saw in the Club World Cup. We've seen this year him have fantastic games, but we also haven't seen him have like stinkers in a while now. So I think if anybody you love the consistency from, it's Maxi Falcone. I think he's certainly earned the right to play over Gonzalo Lujan, and I think right now with the current form and intention of the coaching staff, we've got the right center back pairing, and I like where they're at right now.
I thought they were our first center back pairing when we first started the season, and they clicked and they were starting to build chemistry. Then one of them goes down with an injury, then it's a rotating door. And then we get Gonzalo Lujan back in and David Martinez, some appearances. And then they never really got that chemistry back until, now late in the season where we're starting to see how good these guys can be. And like you said, Falcone hasn't had a stinker of a game, nor has he had a great game by his standards, but they have a solid partnership that you need back there.
Yeah, and I do feel like there was a long period of time where we did not see these two together. And so for them to get 5, 6, 7 games consistently together as we enter the playoffs, I think is really nice to see. Okay, what is your first award?
My first award is the Good Timing Award.
The Good Timing Award. The Good Timing Award goes to Tadeo Allende because he was really bad for a long portion of the season. But it's really good timing to get good again because we're entering the playoffs. And if he can do what he's done over the last couple of games in the playoffs, that will certainly set Inter Miami up for more success than they would if he was an absolute non-factor.
Were you in my head as I thought of these awards and who I was giving it to? Because that was spot on of what I told myself in giving this award. Tadeo Allende. Good timing. Like you just said, if this is any indication of that he's going to pick up the form and take it through and carry this on through the playoffs, what a great time and great moment to start. When in the get right game, getting 2 goals, I thought he played a good game from his standards and from the performance he's had in the past. Had a couple good shots, was able to get into the the middle of the pitch, centrally when Suarez would drift out wide. Didn't have a horrible touch on his 2 goals. Sometimes you see that ping pong touch take him out or away from goal. Was able to put 3 shots on target. 2 of them resulted in goals. He had a good volley that was blocked with his left foot in the box. So I thought he played a great game by his standards.
Yeah, not just the 2 goals, but he had a couple other really important involvements. And here's Pythias in the chat saying, credit where it's due. He had a really solid game, tackling, great space management, and the season's best first touch ball control. I did my mea culpa a week ago with you on the podcast about how I had miscounted his goal tally and how that's on me, and I don't feel as good about his season because of my mistakes or where the truth actually led. And I kind of had let the false impression of how many goals he'd scored influence how I had felt about him. I did that a week ago, and here we are. He scored 3 goals in that week, and he's actually at the goal scoring number that we talked about this time a week ago. I think he's at 15 goals this season, although don't quote me because that wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong about him. But he does have 4 goals in his last 5 games. The touch looks better. He looks more comfortable on the ball. He looks more confident. I can't believe it, but he's actually played himself into form, seemingly. If he can keep this up through the playoffs, I think Inter Miami has a weapon on their hands. And I've always felt like this was in it for him, and I did not feel like for a long time we were doing right by him. But, man, I gave up on him a week ago, and he's absolutely proved me wrong in the last week. So I think I'm just going to stay out on him because when I'm out on him, he plays well.
All right. Do what you have to do.
Do you feel good about him moving into the playoffs? Or are you still nervous?
If this is any indication of him returning to the first 3 months of the season, I'm excited because those first 3 months he was getting onto balls, he was finishing goals, he was good with his touch, and then something happened, he fell off. But if this is the get right game for him and the get back game for him, a lot can happen.
Yeah, I think if he can get right, it's really good for Inter Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. I was gonna give Allende my first award. I'm gonna give the Rest Is Up to Us award.
The Rest Is Up to Us award. The rest is up to us. Why not the rest? I feel like someone's picking up, has to contribute and continue to contribute where they are. I feel Noah Allen, as Jordi Alba gets high, he's saying the rest is up to us. We have to contain and defend well in order for him to get high and provide.
I saw some people last night and this morning talking about how Lionel Messi didn't have a great game. And we have said this a lot this season, that sometimes you need Messi to be able to be less than an absolute superhero and the other guys to step up just a bit. That's what happened yesterday. Messi played fine. I don't think it was a particularly good game, but it certainly wasn't a bad game. But the 3 assists he ends up with, which is a great statistical game, happens because he does what he always does no matter what. But the guys around him actually did the job, especially Tadeo Allende, but of course Jordi Alba involved in that first goal. Messi also scored a goal, but it was called offsides, and it was offsides, but not related to Messi scoring. So in an underwhelming performance from him, he was still great and had 3 goal contributions. And I think if that's what bad form looks like for him and everyone else can still do what they're supposed to do, Inter Miami's going to be fantastic, man.
This is what we need. We were talking about Messi not being able to score and then no one else being able to pick up the slack. This was different. Messi didn't score. The assists were there, and we finished our chances. This is what this Inter Miami team needs. If Messi has a fine game by his standards and our standards of what fine is for Messi, which is this, he didn't have a poor game. He didn't have a crazy, fantastic game. He had 3 assists in a fine showing. And we scored 4 goals, and we were comfortably, we had a comfortable win. if this is any indication of what Inter Miami are going to show for the next 2 games or into the playoffs, build on it.
Now, the other part of this award is the rest, because maybe he did look a little tired, especially in that second half, especially as the game closed down. And again, I've said this multiple times over the course of this podcast. I think you earn the right to be tired or to, take your foot off the gas pedal when you're up 4-1. And they achieved that in the 63rd minute. So maybe our impression of the final 30 minutes was he was a little bit tired. But he's going to international duty. I don't know if he's going to play both games. One of their games is in Miami. Wouldn't surprise me if he's going to play that friendly for Argentina, not play in the other game. And so he'll play one game and won't be with Inter Miami. But are you worried about his fitness at all?
I don't think so. I think he's been relatively close to 100% or 100% fit the last 4 or 5 games. I think he's just a little tired. And, when the game gets, sloppy like that and kind of heavy legged, stood around and just, you saw some fatigue in him. I think he'll be fine going into the playoffs.
Do you want to see him get more rest in the last 2 weeks? Like, do you want to see him have 60 minutes for Argentina, 60 minutes for Miami against Nashville? Or do you feel good about him going 90, 90, 90?
Ideally, I would want him to get 16-60. But he always dictates how much he plays and how that's his thing. If he's fully fit, he will want to go the full 90 if he's ready. But I would like him just take the 60 with Argentina, with Inter Miami, and set yourself up for a comfortable performance or set yourself up for a healthy playoff run, a rested playoff run.
Yeah, I think with the weeks off, if he was staying with Inter Miami, I would feel totally comfortable with him playing because he's going to get the entire week off. I don't know if I'm changing my opinion because of international duty, especially if he ends up playing 2 games. But, when you go to the national team, there's a different environment and some travel involved. So it is – I don't know. I'm hoping this doesn't come back to bite us, but I trust him to take care of himself and to be ready. So I think that's all there is to talk about Messi, because even in a game that was maybe a little bit underwhelming from his standards, and Tunde says in the chat that the standard for Messi is unreal, and that's absolutely true, he still has a great game. So I feel good about Messi. Yeah. Okay, what's your next award?
My last award is the Have a Crack at It award.
The Have a Crack at It award. Interesting. Let's see who played. The Have a Crack at It award I'm giving, or I think you're giving, to Luis Suarez, because you want to see him get more involved in the offense. You want him to take a few shots, build himself into form.
The Have a Crack at It award goes to Rodrigo de Paul. There are many times during the game where he is carrying the ball forward and Messi just kind of taking 2 defenders, and De Paul is getting so close to the 18-yard box that he absolutely just tries to pass it when he can just have a crack at it, have a go at it, take your shot. I want to see him be more active in the offensive part of the game and taking his shots.
I'll be honest, I would have given him the hair that flew north if I could have went back to it. I kind of decided on Maxi Falcone before I rewatched the game, and I think I would go back to De Paul. I actually think he's probably the most responsible player for that goal that New England scored. And there's also another moment where he kind of tries to clear it and doesn't handle it particularly well, and he forces Rocco to make a really nice save in 75th minute, something like that. So I didn't think this was like an improvement at all. So sure, take shots from outside the box, go for it, have a crack at it.
I mean, what can go wrong? If Messi's, has 2 defenders on him and you're trying to play a really tough wall pass or is trying to slip it in between 2 center backs, it's not gonna, and he tried to do it many times. I was like, just shoot the ball. A spillage from the keeper, anything can happen at the back post.
Yeah. If Tadeo Allende is scoring, there's no reason you can't be scoring too. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Listen, Rodrigo de Paul, I think, needs to find a way to be like more of an impact player. And if part of that is taking shots from outside the box, even if you're not scoring, you're making the goalkeeper uncomfortable. You're going to force the defenders to come out and guard you. It's going to make that slip pass a little bit easier next time. Like, I think he needs to try and find ways to be more of an impact player. So have a crack at it. Maybe he does need to have a shot from outside the box every other game just to make that part of the scouting report, make defenders respect it. And then it might open up those passing lanes for Messi or Suarez. So I'm with you on this. Like, yeah, I like the idea. As far as his performance yesterday, I don't think it was particularly impressive. So I don't have much else to say about Rodrigo de Paul. I want him to be an impact player, and it doesn't feel like that's coming.
Hopefully, having a crack at it is a start. We'll soon find out.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, actually. I think that's a great idea. My last award is the Heartbeat Award.
The Heartbeat Award. I'm just getting sentimental and thinking it's Sergio Busquets because he's the heartbeat of the team. And he had a great tribute, and he had a good game. He was pressed a couple times, and he just turned and did all the Sergio Busquets stuff. That's what I'm going with.
I didn't even think about Sergio Busquets when I was doing this, and I kind of regret the name, the Heartbeat Award, now that I remember that. But no, the answer is Rocco Rios Novo, who maybe he didn't notice it during the game because Inter Miami was seemingly in control, but he makes a couple nice saves. I thought he had a relatively good game, and I think this might be his last game at Inter Miami.
I think, he did have a good game. Maybe didn't go as noticed as the other players, but solid. He was solid back there. Wasn't asked to do a whole lot, but when he had to make a save or catch a ball, he was fine. Didn't really, crumble under pressure when they would press him and able to get the ball out. And
For the record, he made 4 saves, 2 from inside the box. One that was I would consider pretty impressive. I thought he had a good game. But the reason why I wanted to give him an award is because I think this is going to be the last game we see from him at Inter Miami, because he's on loan, for those that have forgotten, from Lanús in Argentina. And I think he's been a very good backup goalkeeper this year for Inter Miami. The problem is they've already given a contract extension to Oscar Scotty, and I think they need to upgrade a goalkeeper next year. So I think that means Ustadi becomes your backup next year, and you bring in a number 1, which means I don't know if there's room for Rocco to return, which does kind of make me a little sad because Rocco has played on my heart a little bit this year. And I think over the course of the year, I've grown to really appreciate Rocco and his performance for the team. But I don't want him to become, and maybe because of that, I don't want him to become like a forgotten footnote at Inter Miami. I do think he filled me with confidence, especially in that Leagues Cup. And I also think this is the last time we're going to see him. So unless there's some injury to Ustari over the course of the next couple weeks, that might be it for Rocco at Inter Miami. And I say, you get the Heartbeat Award and hoorah for your performances. Truly.
Great description and great, stand up for Rocco. If, he's been a great asset as a backup goalkeeper. Stepped up in moments where Ustadi was injured or could not play. So I hope he has a great career following his spell at Inter Miami if we don't see him again.
Yeah. Anyone else that you had an award for that you didn't have an opportunity to give it to?
I was going to give it to Messi. I was going to call him the bellhop. He was assisting everyone, helping everyone in scoring. But that's about Segovia could have, I thought he was impactful in his 30 minutes of play.
Yeah, he gets an assist. It's, I think, maybe a little hard to tell because he comes on, immediately gets an assist, and around he goes up 4-1, and I think they let the foot off the gas a little bit. So he wasn't necessarily playing in structure or in the important part of the game. I thought Noah Allen was solid. Baltasar, intriguing game from my perspective, and maybe we should have talked about this more, but I wanted to save it in case he got an award. I think he came back a little bit deeper which is something we asked for last game. I think it took away from his ability to be impactful in the final third. So that's a trade-off that I don't think needs to be mutually exclusive. Like I think there's a way for him to marry those two together, but like that's not a negative. It's his first time trying out a new instruction. Now he will improve and figure out how to be impactful going forward at the same time. So like that's not a criticism. It's just what I thought of his performance. Ian Frey. Any thoughts on Frey?
I thought he was good. He was solid, man. Getting forward, tracking back, making tackles on the sideline. Really smart defending at times. He's put under a lot of pressure on that right side from their left wing and their left mid, and there's this sense of composure and he's able to just to play the ball back or just find De Paul checking in. So I thought he had a solid game.
Did you hear them at the beginning of the game? I believe they said that Ian Frey's been clocked as the fastest player on Inter Miami, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it's a huge surprise in my opinion, because I know he's got good long speed and recovery speed, and I think that helps with his defensive ability, especially down the wing where he doesn't have to be as positionally focused and he can sort of get forward and then rely on his pace going the other way to be an asset for him. But I thought that was interesting. I certainly made a mental note of it. And then the last player is Luis Suarez, who does not get on the score sheet either as a goal or an assist. I thought in the first half he had a couple moments that, again, could have been impactful. I think there was one where it was called offsides, but I don't have the moment in front of me. So I don't know. What do you think of Luis Suarez?
He had a point-blank header that he put over the bar. He had the one where De Paul was called offside, where he didn't get a good touch on it. It just falls into De Paul, who's offside. But not really an eventful first half or game for him. Kind of the odd man out in the attack, I would say. I think you still need more. You need a lot more from him going forward into the playoffs.
I think the thing with Suarez and Messi as well is that they do their best work sort of right on the edge, just inside the box and in central locations. And what the New England Revolution did last night was had their three center backs focused on shutting down that part of the pitch. And that allowed the wide areas to be wide open. And Tadeo Allende and Jordi Alba took advantage of that. So, listen, Suarez had a header. I thought that was like he doesn't put it on target, but it wasn't like him disappearing from the game. I also didn't think there was those moments where he is like tripping over himself, which we've seen a couple times this season. So I thought it was fine. I wouldn't give him like positive marks, or like particularly positive marks, but I thought he did what Luis Suarez has done a lot this year. So I thought it was fine. And then Yannick Bright, anything on him?
He just comes in and just plays his role. He knows what to do, makes tackles, progresses the ball, and not a lot you can really make of in his stint. But yeah, I think he was solid in those minutes he got.
Okay, let's talk big picture moving forward. Inter Miami has 2 games left. They're going to play this upcoming Saturday against Atlanta United. That game's going to be the home finale at Chase Stadium. They're not going to be with a ton of their key players. And maybe for the first time in like 2 years, they're going to get beat up really badly by international call-ups. Sounds like Messi's going to go with Argentina, Rodrigo de Paul, Velasco Segovia with Venezuela, Fafa Picault with Haiti, Ian Frey with Jamaica, Noah Allen with the Greek youth national team. Like, that's a healthy chunk of our starting players and our key players. They'll be able to field a roster: Jordi Alba, Busquets, Suarez, Tadeo Allende, Baltasar. Silvetti, by the way, is still with the U20 Argentine team at the U20 World Cup. And then they play Nashville in the last game of the season. What do you want to see from these two teams?
From the team that's going to be set up.
Sorry. What do you want to see from Inter Miami against these two final opponents? Like, what do you want to see for the rest of the regular season?
It's going to be very tough just to get any consistency in that 11 that you're going up against in Atlanta, but just try to play clean football. No injuries. Make sure that we have instructions and tactical assignments, and we're focused on that because anything can happen. You can win a game with who you have on the pitch. And then the Nashville game, if we get all the guys back, will we have all the guys back for that game?
Against Nashville, we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're
Matteo Silvetti's the one that may not be back.
minus Silvetti because
Yeah.
he's with the U20. Okay. If we field the 11 that you think Mascherano is going to field, and I think Mascherano is going to field that we just saw this weekend with Ustadi in goal, I think that momentum, and I want to see this team just build and be so honed in on trying to play as a unit, trying to play as one, trying to find the cohesion, and that hasn't been there all season. This would be the perfect time to do so.
In the Nashville game.
In that Nashville, because you're going to have all those guys back, and it's right on the doorstep of the playoffs. And all these guys want to do is right what happened last year.
Yeah, it's so weird for me to think about because you're gonna miss half your starting 11 this upcoming week. And Tunde asked for a predicted 11. I would imagine you're gonna see Ustadi in goal, Cello at right back, Falcone and Luan at center back, Alba at left back, a midfield pivot of Yannick Bright and Busquets, Baltasar on the left, Allende on the right. Maybe you won't get Allende on the right. You'll get, I don't know who you're going to get on the right. And then probably Allende and Suarez up top.
Santi Morales? Are we getting a Daniel Pinter signing of showing again?
I don't know. Maybe we're going to get an Alan Obando sighting.
I mean, if he's
actually
healthy.
this does make it more interesting. I don't know. Maybe they play with a back three and they have Toto Aviles in the starting 11. Maybe they put Toto Aviles as a defensive midfielder. I'm not really sure that solves any of your problems. Maybe they go with a 4-3-3 and they go Aviles, Bright, and Busquets in the midfield, and then Baltasar, Allende, and Suarez up top. I don't know. Actually, I think this is going to be interesting. David Ruiz, by the way, also probably not going to be available for that game with his injury. So I don't know. It actually, now that I think about it, is pretty interesting. I'm not sure who starts on that outside spot on the right.
I would just put Santi Morales as your 10 and
Would be interesting.
start Allende, Baltasar, and Suarez up top, and just let it go.
Yeah, I'm not sure Javier Mascherano is going to do that.
No.
So
we both think very differently from Javier Mascherano. A lot of people think very differently, but we'll see.
Yeah, fair. Anyways, so I almost, this game doesn't feel like it matters to me though, because you're not going to be able to build any chemistry. Almost every part of the pitch is going to be different too. Like you're not going to have your two midfielders in De Paul and Busquets. You're not going to have your two center backs in Allen and Falcone. You're not going to be able to put Allen and Jordi Alba together on the left side of the defense. You're not going to be able to put Falcone and Ian Frey on the right side of the like the whole thing. There's not really anywhere where you can build chemistry aside from maybe Alba and Baltasar. So it's hard to reconcile how this game's going to be helpful other than getting some of the backups some minutes. That said, the Nashville game, if they win against Atlanta, the Nashville game will mean nothing, I think. So that game also doesn't feel like it has high stakes. So I guess I'm at a point where I don't know if these last two games really matter that much. And I get what you're saying, and I think you are historically right. You want to be in good form. You want to be winning going to the playoffs. You want your best scorers to be scoring goals. Like all of those things I think are normally true. And I don't know if they apply to this team, which has never been consistent and also is not even going to have a chance to get their guys together for any sort of extended run. So I feel like this is a very blah part of the season in a way that I don't think any of us thought it would be at the beginning.
This international break right before playoffs is really just, I don't know.
The one thing there's a couple other things I want to talk about though before the playoffs. First off, the MLS gets a lot of flack for the number of teams that make the playoffs, right? 18 out of 30 teams is a lot of teams to make the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference this year, there are 9 teams deserving of making the playoffs. The number 9 team this year, right now as we speak, is the Columbus Crew. They have 51 points. They'd be the 5th team in the Western Conference, and they'd probably be higher because they would have played more Western Conference teams. My point in saying all of this is that there will be no cupcakes in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if you like. I don't think it matters if you finish second or third or first. Like, it's going to be a difficult first round regardless. And so I think Inter Miami has to just be ready on that first game day, and then hopefully ready on the second game day to go clinch it in 2, because I don't want to go to game 3 again this year and risk that. For those that haven't tracked the standings, here's what Inter Miami can possibly be. They can't be first. The Philadelphia Union have already clinched first place. FC Cincinnati is currently in second. They have 3 points on Miami. Miami has a game in hand, but they would win the tiebreaker in any scenario where the two finish with the same amount of points. So Inter Miami would have to get at least 4 points and probably 6 if they want to pass Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati would have to drop points in their final game of the season. And then looking the other way, Charlotte and New York City FC both can get to 59, which is what Inter Miami's on right now. So Inter Miami only needs 1 point from their last 2 games to make sure they don't get passed for third place. So I feel like we're pretty locked into third place right now. And it's only a matter of who we're going to face come the first round of the playoffs. And that could also mean the second round is a game at FC Cincinnati, which is not a place Inter Miami's had success at. As CS says in the chat, I can't imagine Miami beating Cincinnati at TQL Stadium. Mark, this is the last time we're going to have you on for as far as being scheduled to come on. And you'll be back at some point. But give me your thoughts on this team. Give me your thoughts on their chances going into the playoffs. Where are you at? Give me where your brain is thinking about this Inter Miami team.
My brain has been all over the place the whole season. Can't really find the right grip on this team. So hot and cold at times. I'm thinking, or my head's at is, I always think if you're able to get consistency, or you're able to find the right play and play all as one unit and just buy into what the whole season has become now, is all laying on the MLS Cup. This team has the talent to do so, to go get it. It is up to them if they want it. That's me. I want them to do it. I think they can do it. That's my thinking going into the playoffs. I'm not going to back down on it. I hate to say that I don't want to see them win. I truly think if their collective minds are just focused on the task at hand, they can achieve it, and it'd be one of the greatest. It'd be a great story for the season.
Inter Miami, you're right, has the talent to beat anyone, and I think especially if Messi plays exceptionally well. I have said for months that he's going to need 2 goal contributions in every single playoff game. Inter Miami's going to, like, if Inter Miami's going to win, it's because he has 2 goal contributions in that game. And it's a matter of if he hits form and at the right time. I think you're right. I think they have the talent to go win the whole thing. I'm not sure that it would be a great story, but ultimately that was the goal. And that was maybe one step shy of the expectation, was to go win it all. And that's still in front of them. Now, to be clear, we had that same conversation when they pulled off a miraculous comeback against LAFC in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. We had that same conversation when they beat Orlando City in the semifinal of the Leagues Cup on a comeback because Orlando City got a red card. Like, it was all to play for them before. They weren't able to pull through. So I want to be crystal clear. I don't think, at least I'm not going to be confident in this team really at any point that they're going to do it. But I'll never lose confidence that they have the talent to go do it, especially with Lionel Messi on the field.
Yeah, I won't ever lose confidence with the number 10 we have. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, Mark, let's end it there. Again, I don't know if you're going to be back on the show for a while. for the next couple weeks. For those that have been missing Soar, as we all have, he'll be back this week for our next episode, whenever that ends up being. And I'm sure he'll be happy and missing talking to you guys. But Marc, thank you so much for filling in and being a part of this show and helping us and giving people like an honest feedback on what this team's doing. And you have a great eye for the game. So I really appreciate you coming on. Please tell everyone where they can find you, and if you have any final words or thoughts for this season, now's the time.
You guys can find me on X on F9Mark, and then Wednesdays or Thursdays we do a podcast on the Kendall Sports Network, which is on YouTube, called False 9. We do all things Inter Miami and then some, so you can stop on by there, have a chat. But Scotty, man, thank you for having me. Final thoughts on Inter Miami. I want us to win the whole thing. I want to come back on this show in a victory, in some victorious post game that you're gonna throw when we hoist up the MLS Cup.
It's funny. I'm afraid to let myself believe, and I just said I'm not gonna have confidence at any point. But man, it would be awesome. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. Marc, again, thank you so much. Thank you for being in the chat. You guys actually are what makes this show so much fun. So we'll be back sometime this week. I think we have an interesting conversation about the young players and development this season. I think there's probably also another conversation to have about Sergio Reguilon and maybe figuring out what that's all about. So we'll be back for all of that. So, guys, thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful night. And get some good sleep and stay healthy. We'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.